Good morning. I'll be doing chapter 7 of ethics. So basically it was about how can we minimize harm and put out names of victims ethically. So the scenario is in May of 2017 in Waco, Texas. Motorcyclists gathered for statewide biker coalition, and so having that meeting present meant that two biker rival gangs would be there at the same time. They were the Banditos versus the Cossacks. I could be pronouncing that wrong, but they ended up fighting over territory and parking spaces, which left 9 people dead, 20 wounded, and 177 arrested and charged with organized crime. Each of them had $1 million bail. And the challenge of this entire chapter was, should they report the names? It was a huge story for Waco, Texas TV. Small stations struggled to find information since all the big stations were taking all of the bigger stories. Janet Wheeler in particular is who the chapter focuses on, which is a small reporter, and she struggles if she wants to release the names or not. But she tries to get to the bikers as close as possible. The Waco police, Waco or Waco? The Waco police weren't releasing names. Some of the victims weren't cooperating with the police, and if names were released, relatives of the victims could be harmed. 2 days later, the TV stations had the names on their newscast and on their website. Newsroom starts to make calls to see if they could get the actual names. Police still wouldn't release the names. So the response was, at this point, just use the names. The police didn't care at this point because the news station was going to do whatever they wanted to do. But this put Janet Wheeler in an uncomfortable position. But due to pressure from audience, she decided to wait to release the names. So the aftermath is pressure drives the newsrooms. All in all, Wheeler wishes that they weighed their options first, especially because people's families were at risk. Once names went public, the newsrooms didn't care anymore. Like, the story wasn't even as big anymore. No one really cared about the entire bike fiasco. So how can you minimize harm? The third element in the Society of Professional Journalists Code of Ethics is to minimize harm. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Basically, the vice president of the Professional Journalistic Board, Fred Brown, says that the person who gets hurt in this scenario is the immediate family of the deceased, because they would be surprised on who died. They didn't really get that intimate time of grief. Compassion is key. Victims are not public figures, and names are only needed to follow the story. And really, all in all, it goes to reporting versus withstanding information. Personally, I think that the names of the deceased should be released, not necessarily the names of people who have been arrested or wounded, but the names of the deceased should be released just because that's information that people should probably know. And also, it doesn't put as many people in risk because the person is deceased. It might cause, some friction between like the gangs, but I think if they were to release the names of the deceased, it wouldn't have been such a big deal. They should have, just released them. I think that they were withstanding information, honestly.